Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cage Full Throttle, brought to you in association with Cecil's Rent-A-Rookie and UK Action Cars, and produced by Orange Race Media. Here is your host for the evening. He's the one and only man from Ireland, Ed Fahey.
Good evening, Bayern Racing fans, and a very warm welcome to the latest episode of Cage Full Throttle. I'm Ed Fahey. Now, by the looks of things, we're starting to go racing again, so obviously there will be a fairly healthy topic for discussion this evening. But before we do all that, let's introduce the panellists. He's the man in orange. He's Mr. Orange Race Media himself. It's Mr. James Keane.
Good evening, Ed. Good evening to everyone else listening, and good evening to my panellist and guest this evening.
He's the real Bayern Racing fan. In other words, that makes him a real British touring cars fan. It's Jordan Hollins.
Yes, hello Ed, and hello everyone else. It's going to be another packed show tonight, and can't wait to get going.
And in the guest seat, what can we call him? We'll just say he's Mr. Starter. It's Mark Ayres.
Good evening, Ed, and good evening, everyone else.
Nice. Well, let's see what happens. The racing has begun again. I suppose the biggest meeting we had last weekend, we too, actually, with Ipswich Bangor World Series and with Kings Lynn East Anglian Championship on the Shale. But let's go to Ipswich first. Jordan, are we back in business when it comes to BWS?
Yeah, I think we are. I think Ipswich is a track which, due to the high-speed nature of it and it being a world qualifying round, some people don't necessarily go to the meeting expecting crashing or necessarily expect big things from it. But with the rain falling and the track very greasy and muddy as a result, I think someone alluded to this on Over Banger Chat. It sort of acted as an equaliser for everyone. So there was some great racing throughout. I think Heat 2 was very good. Jordan Cumming was battling with Ayres Karl Kozlowski, and I think Callum Reid was also up there battling. But then it was 382 Jack Foster Jr. who come through to take the win in that one. There's some great action as well. I think Nathan Roberts got rather millered by the Gladiators on turns 1 and 2. Josh Boakes got nailed by Jack Hansel, and then 623 Tricky Ricky Hutton. And who can forget Vikings hit on Josh Gooch in the first heat race of the night. Viking has been absolutely sensational in the Bangor World Series so far. He's raced 3 variants of the Ford Scorpio. Nicely presented every single time. And on 2 of the 3 occasions, he's taken the car home absolutely millered, unfortunately, at Aldershot. The hearse was still intact, but no, it was a great meeting. I thought the Bangor World Series is back, and it was rather unusual because obviously we've visited the same track twice this year so far in Ipswich for the BWS. But yeah, congratulations to Boris on the win. It was great to see spectators at a track again, and I think everyone behaved themselves pretty well, or the majority did from what I saw. Wearing masks and were trying to social distance where possible. So yeah, despite the weather, I thought everyone had a really good night, and yeah, the show's back on the road.
That's good. James, you there as well, or were you just were you working?
No, I wasn't working. I was working the day afterwards. I know that's Mark won't have any sympathy for me on that because I know he had to work both days back to back, so he won't have any sympathy. But I was watching live on Speedway TV, and it has to be said what a great show was put on between the 2 commentators there, Andy Hankin and our very own Don Brock, who were brilliant all night. And it was a great event. It was a really good Bangor World Series, I thought. After a 4-month hiatus, it was technically Bangor Series World 3, although of course there were 2 other wild cards. The stadium was as well attended as it could be, and with the National Hot Rods as well starting their English Point Series, it was really good. There's an absolute ice rink out there. In practice, former world champion hot rod driver Billy Wood put his car into the barrier and got back out. It just shows how slippy it was out there. And it was back to the Bangor World Series format of split heats, a all-in showdown, and followed by the wild card. And there were some great cars out there as well. Jackstar brought a fresh Frog limo. Viking brought a fresh Frog limo. 180 Sparky had a fresh Lincoln, I believe, Jordan. I think, wasn't it? It was a Lincoln limo he had out there.
Yeah, it was a Lincoln limo, and that's something I forgot to mention, actually. What a hit by Barton boy Jamie Polk.
Exactly, yeah.
In the wildcard final,
Sure.
Absolutely great
absolutely.
shot.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that in a second. The Bears turned up in used Mercs, apart from Odd Job, who had a lovely used Yank, and there was a lot of fresh cars out there. Jethro, Jonesy, 617 came in a used Mark II. But we moved on to the first heat, and 328 Ben Nichols with the first heat took the first win with 65 Josh Gooch taking a bit of a hammering down on turn 3. And in heat 2, 180 Sparky got his limo followed in early and ended up across the track. The red flags came out for a big hit on 384 John Golden, but he got out of his car okay. Orris and 570 Jordan Cummings then took them away from a complete restart, but it ended up with from there with a great battle between them, and it ended up with 328 Chubby Jack Foster Jr. who took the win. As we went for the showdown, it took 3 attempts with the 3 abreast clutch starts for the race to actually start. We started off with Jack Tuffin taking a big hit among others, and red flags came out for a wheel on the track. Attempt number 2 started. Great start from Overy, but then we had another red flag for a wheel on the track, but not before big hits from Noddy and a huge hit from Odd Job in the Bears Yank we mentioned earlier. Attempt number 3, Dale Hughes had a clear lead from Mitch Finney to begin with, although Dale then decided to put his car in the back of 360 Jack Reynolds' limo, which allowed the Merc estate of 455 Rick Finney to sail off and take the win in the showdown. It was a great showdown race. We then got to the final, the wildcard final for the Bangers. The 2 Frog Eye limos came together pretty early, with Jack Star jacking up the Viking, and then followed by the other limo, the Yank of 180 Mark Foster, who then jacked up the Viking. Red flags came out for that because Sparky's bonnet ended up on the raceway, which in a bit of a dangerous position. And then Chubby and Ben Nichols were still in first and second at the restart. And then as we went from there, Ronnie Hammond jacked up Kieran Bowman on the back straight, and then the 2 Yanks of Odd Job and Sparky met. Orris took the lead from Dino Jr. The 3 lap board came out from our very own guest, and then the race settled down with Orris then taking it to the flag. And as we were on the rundown laps with the checker flag out, it was 2-on-1 the Barton boy, Jamie Pole, who then put his car straight through Mark Foster's Yank limo with one of the hits of the night, probably one of the hits of the season so far. Both drivers stood from their footwells and a bit of a handshake and smiles all round. It was Sparky knew exactly what he was going to get in that limo, and I think he was happy to oblige it. But it ended up with 124 Carl Kazuski, who's the 4th wildcard qualified to the World Final. He'll join Jack Overy, Jack Tuffin, and his partner 699 Stacey Holdsworth on the World Final grid. Hopefully we'll get that World Final this year. And yeah, that's the race report. I mean, Jordan, you braved the conditions. I mean, like I said, do you want to say more about that hit on Sparky from Jamie Pole? He's no stranger to a big hit. I was on that corner at the Champion of Champions when he with that huge following. He loves to entertain.
Yeah, Jamie's no stranger to putting it about. Obviously, he was the inaugural winner of the BWS Entertainers League last year, and he's been carrying on in fine form as well this year. Admittedly, he probably isn't going to do the entire BWS like he did last year. He was also in action at Kingston last Saturday, and he was involved in the wrecking action throughout the night there as well. Jamie and the Barton Boys the Barton Boys as a team have always been a great team to watch, but over the last year and a half, they've really come on leaps and bounds, and they've cemented their place in probably one of the top teams in the history of the sport now. And you have got the young guns coming through, the likes of Jamie, the likes of Aaron Pole, Tom Jordan as well, Mozza, Tom Morris as well. They're a great outfit, and the Northern Banger scene looks very good with them guys.
That's it. I mean, we're back racing again, so obviously people have been itching to race for a good few months now. They go to 6 months, pretty much, maybe 5 or 4 months. But I mean, these guys have been building cars, they've been finding cars, getting cars ready. I'm sure it's been a case of some of them, they've 4 cars stripped out, but there's only enough to build 2, so there's still a bit of a rush, obviously, when they're going to race their cars. But no, it looks like we're back in business for the moment, of course. Obviously, these current times we find ourselves in, we don't know what's going to happen next, unfortunately. So we're not sure what's going to happen next. But speaking of the other fun meeting of the weekend, we were at Kings Lynn for a bit of shell shifting. It was the East Anglian Championship. Jordan, you were there, I believe.
No, unfortunately, I wasn't there. No, it's all right. I was due to be at Donington for the touring cars, but obviously that was
That's the
called
other
off for spectators.
That's the other BWS, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or
like
that
it's the other BWS, yeah.
They were
The
fairly
BWS. But
fairly
no, Kings Lynn was another very lively fair. Obviously, it was their first meeting back, so going back onto the point you just said there, Ed, a lot of the local drivers. It was probably their first meeting back in months, probably since the last icebreaker crawler, one domestic, I think, that Kings Lynn managed to fit in. But it was a great field of cars. I think that's nearly 100 turn up. It was also the white and yellows final, which is a race that always causes a lot of action. And I think it was the second heat race or the first heat race, a massive wrecking train on turn number 2. 831 Wally Shane Fry was involved. 884 Tom Filmer was involved. 100 Callum White was involved. I think one of the Silver Boys, 127, was left with a caged Mercedes saloon after that one. And it was just great action from the word go. I think, was it Tom Jordan? I'm sure someone will correct me on that if I'm wrong, but he was jacked hard by one of the Bears as well later on. There was a great hit by Callum White on a Mark III Granada on turn number 4 in the East Anglian final itself. Kings Lynn's back in business, which again is great to see. It was great to see a crowd there as well, and from everything I've heard and seen, social distancing was fine. And even though, rather interestingly, masks weren't mandatory, no one had a bad word to say about it yet again. I know the drivers were absolutely thrilled. They said the track was spot on. So once again, it looks like Trackstar have got it right and they've pleased everyone, which is great to see.
Well, that's it. I mean, everyone's obviously keen to go racing again. They don't want to cause something silly to screw things up. But no, I think you probably did better watching that in the touring cars because they weren't great. But I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of British touring cars podcasts, but there's only one banger racing podcast. So let's leave the tin tops and the Matt Neal versus Jason Plato eternal argument to somewhere else. But with more racing throughout the weekend, a bit more the fun element of it, of course, pioneered by our cage president for life, Mr. Keith Reynolds. All the shot back to basics. James, you're a big B2B fan. What was it like?
I am indeed, and I'm obviously a big Aldershot fan as well. It was, again, great to see the doors open. So with the way Aldershot is able to split the track almost in half for spectators and drivers, and a decent crowd came out to see what was a lively day of racing, not only from the back to basics, but also from the junior bangers, which I'll ask our guest about later as well, because he was on the starters roster. I was on the pit gate. He had a Mark, didn't you? You had a lovely little jacking train in the second heat underneath your rostrum, and then a second jacking train over on the back straight. What was your thoughts on what was a great day?
It was a great day, to be fair. Obviously, Harry Botfield was racing out in his junior banger. The thing I said to him in the pits earlier was, "Don't crash in front of me." And all of a sudden, there he was. He was sitting in front of me. But the jacking train in front of us and race control at the start line was fantastic. As ever, the junior bangers, alongside the back to basics, stole the show. Obviously, the Super Socks were in action as well. And they was actually quite a highlight of the weekend. But in my eyes, as ever, the juniors took the show away once again.
Yeah, it's always the same with the junior bangers. I mean, you're always guaranteed one of two things. Firstly, there'll be some junior drivers who are ready to make the step up and they're ready to show what they're all about with some big hits, especially on a greasy track. You're always going to get a spinner. And secondly, we were treated to a couple of rollovers. Those little micros, as they go around a tight track like Aldershot, are always going to roll over. And it was a decent field out there, wasn't it? It was about 35, 40 cars, I think, in total. And yeah, it's... Again, I don't have the results here for you for the meeting, but in the back to basics, it won't surprise anyone to know that 760 Joey Reynolds took a heat win. I can't remember the last time I was at Aldershot when he didn't win a meeting. He gets enough jokes about
Behind closed doors.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah, of course, he didn't actually that time. Yeah, that must have got to him. Joey is one of the quickest around Aldershot, as most people know, and he loves to take a win. And we had a good DD as well, actually. The rules were changed slightly, so we did a rolling start on the DD to get things moving quickly, and it ended up as the ideal DDs do, with 2 cars, 1 head-on, no clear winner because both cars went head-on, and then both cars died at the last minute, which is exactly how we want to see a DD end, especially in Back to Basics.
But you can guarantee when Matt Soul's about with a Beetle, that's when you know
that Beetle was
going to be a good DD.
Yeah, that Beetle was fun. All DD. Yeah, so
they're surprisingly strong as well. The Beetles, fun enough, not to look a bit silly, but
especially
probably the best B2B car going.
Well, it's the same with a lot of modern cars, isn't it? They're built. They might be made of plastic on the outside, but their inner and outer chassis are just built to last.
Built to take one big hit anyway, but we discussed that before. Did anyone leave the airbags in, or were all airbags removed this time? It's always funny when you see an airbag.
Well, they're always meant to be removed. Obviously, I don't think I saw any go off. It's like I say, there's always one driver that forgets to take the passenger one out, but I didn't see any go off this time. We did always get what we always get in B2B. We got a couple of fires in the DD. Again, that's the thing about Back to Basic racing. Everything's on injection. Well, a lot, because it's a lot more modern cars. Most of them are on injection rather than carb. So injection just doesn't stop leaking the fuels.
And they're built to how they should have been a couple of years back too, which brings the people in to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what Aldershot Back to Basics have shown.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's what we want. Obviously, we're racing again, be it unlimited, be it 2 litres, be it Back to Basics. So, hopefully it can continue if people observe the guidelines. Basically, we're not going to go into that. We've spoken about that before as well. We're just going around in more circles. But moving on to this weekend coming, and we've 2 very big meetings. And the first one, obviously, it's probably going to be the biggest meeting of the comeback so far. Ipswich Gold Rush, you have 100 cars booked in for Ipswich. So, I mean, can't go any wrong with that. Mark, you looking forward to this one?
Sadly, I'm heading to Northampton on Saturday.
Sorry.
But that's fine. But obviously, Gold Rush is always one of the highlights. Obviously, it's a rookie banger, BWS. But looking at the booking list, what I'm at this moment in time, obviously, in my eyes, Jason Green is probably one to watch on Saturday. Obviously, he won the wild card race at Aldershot behind closed doors and obviously got docked for holding back on the restart. But looking at what's on the list, we've got some very good drivers, and obviously a lot of them know Ipswich like the back of their hand, to be totally fair. I think Georgian will agree with me on that one.
Yeah, definitely. You've got a great entry of cars booked in. As Ed said, 100 cars. And, at a track like Ipswich, it's going to be interesting because you'll have 2 50-car heat races, I would imagine, and probably the final will be all in. So you've got to stay out of trouble, but you've also got to be quick. As you said there, Mark, Jason Greeny, knows the track like the back of his hand. A very, very quick driver in the 1600cc bangers, as is Tom Greenstreet there as well. Who else you got booked in?
Obviously, you got Lee Kingsnorth, but obviously he took the wild card back at Aldershot, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, we've got a few good ones. We've got Turkish James Friston as well, obviously Back to Basic regular. Also pretty rapid in the 1600cc class.
As long as you don't decide he wants to be an aeroplane again.
Oh yeah, that's something we did mention at Aldershot. Of course, there's some great photos on Cage. You'll see of the angle that he was there. We've also got some 1-2-3 Steve Saw East Anglia, absolute flying in the 16cc class. 131 Gromit's in there. Jack Aylward. We've got 240 Charlie Corpiella, obviously from the Corpiella family, big names in bangers. You've got 305 Alfie Cornish, and I think you've also got Mickey Cornish booked in as well. So again, they'll be great. 522 Carl Douglas Blacknuts. I've not seen him racing for a while actually, so I think he'll have a great time out there. 591 Aaron Morris. 610 Devon Usher. Someone obviously will be well known to a lot of people in banger racing for his raffles, but he's also a very capable pilot in his car.
You got Lennon Phillips on the list as well to make it more interesting. Obviously, no one who knows these domestic bangers.
Yeah, it's just looking fantastic at 100 cars. Nicky Jarvis, Shandy as well.
Another name in there as well was 414 Jimmy Craig. He's already actually taken 2 race wins this week as he made a long trip up to Skegness on Tuesday night. Took 2 race wins, and I think he finished well in the third one as well, or in the other race as well. So, yeah, he'll be one to watch. You know, Jimmy's a great driver, a member of the 3 Litre crew, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be giving it his best shot to book his spot on the grid for the World Final this year.
And another big name in East Anglia circles as well was talked about off air before he came on. 950 Scott Gamble as well was booked in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it should be a great night of racing, and who knows? I think I said it before we went live. You know, with the right ingredients, whether that's a bit of rain or something interesting happening at the start, the racing could be quite hard as well. I know that the 1600cc bangers started off their career as mainly nudge and spin, but anyone who's followed the scene recently or over the last couple of years certainly know that yeah, these guys don't muck about when they want to crash.
I don't think rain's on the cards this weekend. Definitely not. Anyway, not looking at the forecast at this moment in time. I think it's more sunscreen than anything. I think me and James will come back red by the end of Sunday anyway.
Well, James won't be red. He'll be whatever comes after red.
Well, no, me and Mark are the members of the Orange Army that are orange in a lot of ways, and we end up looking like lobsters after most weekends.
Well, as you probably know, I'm half an orange as well, so I'm orange peel. So yeah, I literally peel. But no, it should be good. I mean, it's good that there's a lot of enthusiasm for it now. I mean, usually around this time of the year, people, you know, you've had half the season, you're getting a bit fed up with it now, you know, maybe something in the bank holiday weekend, something in September can give you a kick back into it. So, I mean, we're starting late, but I mean, we're certainly making up for it. But then the other, we finished with the Gold Rush now, we move on to the next one, or any more we need to discuss on this one?
No, I think we've covered that pretty well. I mean, I think the one last thing to say is that the 1600 Speedway domestic class has been very well followed in the East Anglia circles for a while. Obviously, the domestic Bangor World Final is one of the biggest booked-in events with some of the smartest cars, and it's great to see that even after lockdown, that class is still going strong in East Anglia. So I can imagine we're going to get a lot of good feedback and a lot of great pictures submitted to us for that, because I think it's going to be a bit special.
You've got the drivers supporting the meeting as well, which is a very good thing.
Yep. Well, that's it. I mean, support is what we need right now, so we're getting it. So hopefully, if you're listening in from the area, go on, have a look at it. But there's a problem, or am I right in saying Kings Lynn is on Saturday night and Ipswich is on Sunday, or are they both on Saturday? I'm getting a bit mixed up.
No, they're both on Saturday, yeah.
Right. So if you don't like Hondas and Vauxhalls and little other stuff, maybe turn the clock back 40 years at Kings Lynn, because it's the pre-70 meeting there this weekend. Now, this meeting was meant to happen earlier in the year as part of it was basically meant to pick up the mantle from Stoke as the Stan Woods Classic Car meeting. Obviously, COVID and that getting in the way. So they've kind of put Stan Woods aside for this year, so we'll hopefully come back to that in 2021. But yeah, the Kings Lynn Pre-75, I mean, it's been part of the calendar for a long time, Bangor Racing. It seems to be one of the more established classic car meetings. But right now, we haven't quite got 90 cars, but not far off it. On the booking list anyway, there's 41 overs and 48 unders. And for a change, the drivers haven't really been too keen on saying what they have. Now, the one of the really boys is the proper Swedish brick, a Volvo 164. But this should be a fantastic meeting. Jordan, are you going? Or before we get it wrong and say, were you there? Oh, no, actually.
No, I am actually going to that, Ed. Yeah, it was a meeting that was like I was looking at the start of the year as well when the original fixture list went out. Obviously, never been able to go to a Stanwoods meeting. It was something that was quite high on my agenda to do this year, the Kings Lynn Pre-75, and obviously due to the circumstances, it didn't happen on its original date. But fair play to Trackstar, they've rescheduled it early on in the year. Later on in the year, sorry. Yeah, it's looking to be a great meeting. Maybe not as many cars as they'd originally hoped for, or that were due to race on the original date. But nevertheless, to see, what was it? Just over 40 overs and just under 50 unders at a meeting nowadays is an incredible effort by all the drivers and all the people that help them as well, because these old cars take a hell of a lot of effort to prepare, you know, lots of welding, getting spares, making sure they run properly, and you know, the drivers would have put in a lot of effort over the last few months to get the cars ready for this weekend. So, you know, bearing that in mind, the heats will be run to nudge and spin, which is something I don't mind. I'd love to see, you know, as someone who was has only known Bang Racing post 2000, it is great to always see the old classic cars race, and you know, I can sort of imagine what it was like going racing in, you know, the 70s and stuff like that, watching these cars get thrown around the track. So yeah, it should be a great night of racing action. Obviously the Stanwoods meeting hasn't happened this year and probably won't happen again due to the closure of Stoke, but should Saturday go well, I don't see any reason why we can't have another Kings Lynn Pre-75 meeting next year. But obviously all that will have to be discussed by the guys at Trackstar.
Well, that's it. I mean, we discussed that before, obviously, the ups and downs of tracks. Actually, we'll come back to a track that we've lost very recently, again, in a minute or two. But no, you're right about just the classic car side. It's always more fiddly. But obviously, back in the day, there was no airbrush paint jobs, no camel hair paint jobs either. And just the hitting didn't seem to be as heavy. But, I mean, banger racing has evolved, hasn't it? But the final meeting we'll discuss, or we finish discussing this now, we'll move on again?
No, I think that's it.
The final meeting we'll preview this weekend is over my neck of the woods. We're back racing Tullyrone on Saturday the 15th of August, which is a Saturday, like I just said. We're making a return to Tullyrone Oval. DMC are actually racing Agadoo this weekend, but it's hot rods, so not really something we discuss on Caged. But yeah, it'll basically be the start of the Irish season. I mean, we only got one Bayern race meeting under our belts back in beginning of March, which was the Paddywack meeting at Nuts Corner. But basically, DMC Irish Promotions are all set to have the Irish Teams Championship, which is the usual curtain raiser to the proper Irish season around the end of March. But unfortunately, things got in the way. So a lot of guys had Mondeos and other 2-litre cars ready to go. So we're off with the 2-litre National Bangers Tullyrone Challenge Cup. It's starting off at Tullyrone at 6:30 on the Saturday 15th of August. Now, the booking list, to be fair, it's the usual suspects. But, I mean, these guys are like putting on a show. Just looking through it very quickly. Rod Heron's there, Mr. Consistency, or Mr. Granda, as they call him. He's former world champion Stephen Bolton. Jonathan Compelli and Paul Compelli, they're guys to watch. They might wear glasses, they might slag themselves for wearing glasses, but the two of the hardest hitting guys going. You have 2 and 5 Leonard Dunn, who's really the superstar now of Irish banger racing, although Steve McGrath might be one to argue with him about being a superstar. Another guy to watch out for, 39, Dino McGrath. He's Steve O's nephew, would you believe? But he's established himself big time now as a proper. He's another rising star really of the Irish scene. Like, he's no fear. I'll give him that. He's absolutely no fear. Some of the follow-ins he pulled off last year in the micros was unreal. Another guy watch out for 756 Paul Stafford. I know he's one of the old hands, but he's never afraid. He's got no fear either. But I mean, he's raced so much now, nothing phases him, shall we say. But it should be a good meeting. I'd say most people are going to be there for the crash anyway. But I'm sure the likes of Leonard Dunn, Stephen McGrath, maybe Dylan McGrath as well, that may want to hoover up the points, as will Stephen Bolton. So it's the beginning now of the 2020 championship points. So it'll be interesting to see who does what. I hope to be there anyway. We'll see how DMC get on this weekend with the social distancing measures. I mean, obviously they brought in a few restrictions like all the other tracks were. But I mean, if it means we can go racing, you can put up with the restrictions, really, can't you? But hopefully when we return, we'll be reporting back from these 3 meetings and how they all went. Moving on again, though, we have our guest for the evening, Mark Ayres. Now, traditionally, when we have a guest on, we have a little chat with them, ask them, what they're involved with bangers. Obviously, Mark is Mr. Starter. But if the other treats ready for him, James, you have a few nice questions ready for him, have you?
Yeah, I have. So, obviously, as we always do, we interview our guests as they come on. Obviously, Mark's a man that I work with very closely quite a lot of the time. He's also a man that was part of my training, so any of the mistakes I've made, we can blame him for. But as
I haven't taught you how to lean on a broom yet. I've told you
that's true. Yeah, no, yeah. Mark is famous for leaning on a broom when we need to use them to sweep. But
how to look cool leaning on a broom, is it?
Well, no, I don't think Mark's mastered the looking cool bit yet. But the first question we always ask is, Mark, what was your first involvement with stock car racing? How did it all begin for you?
Well, probably go back to about 7 years old. Obviously, my auntie got with her current other half now, and he's raced all his life. His dad's raced all his life, and to be fair, they still do. Then we start going back years to when Bovingdon was open. So obviously the caravan meeting used to be then what's run out all shot on Easter Sunday used to be a Good Friday meeting. And it just went on from there. Then from the minute I stepped foot and I watched the racing, and I was like, I'm going to be one of those one day, and that's how it went. It just went there on and upwards.
So sorry, Ed, was your assessment that?
No, not at all. No, it's just interesting. Obviously, how do you get into it? Sorry, the main question. It's usually different though for the say people who marshal and you know the guys who actually run the racing rather than those who race. Do you ever have any aspirations to get behind the wheel, or have you raced at all, Mark? Or it's just you prefer doing what you're doing?
No, I've never raced. Never had the enthusiasm to get behind the wheel. That makes sense. My enthusiasm comes from standing on a rostrum. Yeah, you may sit in the car, drive for 15 laps, 20 laps, whatever it is, while we carry on getting wet. But my enthusiasm comes from getting people on the track and racing and making sure they can race in the safest way we can give you, to be fair.
So,
go on, sorry, Jordan, go on.
No, go on, Ed, carry on. It was me.
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say that's fine. I mean, you know, obviously everyone gets their kicks from different areas, so I mean, it's great that you enjoy that, and you know, long may it continue. I obviously need people to run the racing as well. I mean, for a normal meeting, you're talking, you know, it could be the guts of, say, for even a small meeting, you're talking about 20 or 30 people actually needed in between the marshals, the guy at the gate, the pit marshals, corner marshals like James, yourself, recovery people, then race control and everything. So, you know, there's a lot bigger effort goes into some meetings than people might think. But could we maybe tempt you into going into our main sponsor, Cecil's Rent a Rookie, and doing a B2B or a rookie session at some stage, Mark? No?
You probably could, but as it comes, you probably could get me into doing it at one point, but probably have to take a lot of pleading to get me that far, to be fair. Because
we'll just go easy on you, know.
It also, as much as I've seen other staff race, like when Vince Sharp used to start marshal at Bovingdon all them years ago, and I used to follow what he done, and then he used to race as well. Obviously, we're in a day now where, as part of the team, when I'm not there or I'm somewhere else, or like Lochgelly Speed Weekend, because I travel up to Lochgelly and I work up there with the team up there. I can obviously work with the Inca staff and stuff. When you look at the fixture and you start planning your year, you start running out of dates to do anything. You're supporting everybody as much as you can.
Yeah.
Obviously, like everyone knows, Eastbourne's is my starting track, my home track as I call it, for starting. Don't miss many meetings there, to be fair, unless I'm away or whatever.
So as part of a Oval Talk series, so obviously we, as most people know, we used to be part of Downforce Radio. They are hoping to make a return in the new year, but as part of our Oval Talk interview series, we interviewed another one of our colleagues, Liam Horner, who he regularly races still in Rookie Bangers, and another one of our colleagues as well, obviously Barry Deacon, is regularly racing. But both have said the same thing. Marshalling is almost like a sport in itself. It's something that we train for. We try and be as good as we can, and it's almost like you're sort of competitive with yourself every meeting just to try and get better and better. But Mark, coming on to that is just, obviously you started off your starting career with the Rolling Thunder show, and then as you became involved with Speedworth, obviously you're now one of the most regular starters. But your first experience starting for Speedworth, you were pretty much thrown right in at the deep end at probably the most iconic track of all, Wimbledon. So what was that like, being thrown in at that deep end?
Well, to be fair, it was coming. If I remember rightly, it was getting near the Christmas time, and obviously at Christmas, Alex goes away, and like everybody else at Christmas goes away and to enjoy themselves. Funny enough, our famous, lovely Adam Leslie said to me, "Mark, jump on the rostrum," and that was it. And I think I was on with about 60 micro bangers at this point. And obviously, at this point, we were using big headsets to hit, and all I ever had were coming from Graham Woodward in the commentary box. So anything that the stewards were relaying to me at the time was coming through commentary as well as everything else. In my opinion, Wimbledon is the best track to train, was and will always be. I started off the training with Marshall there, and obviously I was marshalling for about 4 or 5 meetings, and then it went on to the starting point of view. And when I was covering Alex, and then ended up doing Ireland full time, and then now doing Aldershot full time as a starter. But Wimbledon was the track to be at starting. The simple that, yeah, you don't own half the stadium, but it was a good place to learn because you learn more about who is who, because it was a smaller track and it was enclosed. Where at Aldershot or Eastbourne, you look up, you look back to the back gate, and you're basically looking out into the crowd and open, where the crowd was behind you at Wimbledon, so it's more focused on what was going on the track.
Yeah, I think most people will say that's one of the things they miss about Wimbledon is that enclosed atmosphere was one of the things that made it so special. Looking forward, I suppose one of the things that everyone's looking to at the moment is we're getting racing again, but what is the future of stock car racing? I mean, we've seen tracks close. Obviously, Star Tracks have lost Bellevue, Stoke, Coventry so recently. Wheels was lost and now is back under PRI. I mean, how do you see the future of stock car racing as we go forward into the next few years?
As we go forward, obviously, you've got the support. Obviously, everybody will tell you in this world, because of what I do at the moment for them, the stock rods are always my highlight of any meeting when they're on. Because obviously I do a lot of work. I run their page, I run a stock rod page and the website and all that for them backstage. But stock car racing going forward is only going to work. You have the support from the drivers, but the drivers need our support to be at the meetings, to run them, to work with each other. Like any meeting, you go to a meeting, the driver will get hot-headed, master get hot-headed, and then they shout at each other, and then that's that. But at the end of the day, if we're not supporting each other, and also we need spectators to come in and help pay towards the rent of the stadium, but we all need to work together. People say, oh, spectators are separate, drivers are separate, officials are separate. You're not. Stock car racing is a family away from family. It's a home away from home. You go to Eastbourne on the bank holiday Monday, as you know yourself, James, and you come in and there'd be everyone. And it's a social. It's not a race meeting. It's a social gathering. Yeah, it's one of the things.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I probably spend more time with apart from my partner Sarah. I probably spend more time with the Speedworth officials, the drivers, and the spectators you see meeting after meeting. Without all three parts of that is the only way the sport's going to survive, is to have that support from all those things. The last thing I want to touch on before we get on to the quiz is obviously we talked about Ipswich earlier. You were starting that meeting. It was a great return for the Bangor World Series, and how do you think the national banger scene is looking at the moment? Because I think it's looking probably more positive than it has for a while.
It is, and to be fair, they made a new pair of white jeans after that Saturday night.
Yeah, it was one of the with all the shale splattering everywhere. I think most people went home looking a bit dirty. I've seen some pictures of some of the drivers that came out, and just like you can see, like once they took their helmets off, just they're wearing sort of Zorro masks with the amount of mud that had been sprayed at their face.
Yeah, and to be fair, National Bangers, like every formula, it works with its own community, as I call it. So obviously the National Bangers have their own, it's like little towns. So you've got the National Banger town, you've got the Stockrod town, what have you. But as ever, it will only work if the drivers and the fans and the officials work together. Yeah, National Bangers going forward, as I'm going to nick one of Dean's sayings from his interview on Speedworth TV, is that National Bangers are one of the top formulas in oval racing. and it's always going to be that way because everybody knows what national bangers are. When back to basics come, it took a while for people to understand what they actually were, but everyone always went by rookie bangers or national bangers, and that what it was all them years ago.
So that actually brings me on to the last question before we go into the quiz. That brings it on. There are probably 3 premier world finals in the world of stock car racing: the Briscoe F1 World Final, the National Hot Rod World Final, and so the National Banger World Final, the Briscoe F1 World Final, the National Hot Rod World Final. You've been lucky enough to be on the back of the pace car for at least 2 of those in a world final. What goes through your head?
Right.
Were you on the back of the pace car for the Briscoe F1 final at Ipswich as well?
No, I've done the rookie banger one as well.
Oh, and the rookie one as well. What goes through your head when you've got that yellow flag in your hand as you go around that corner? 10,000 fans in Ipswich, 50 bangers chasing you. What goes through your head?
Well, obviously, as everyone knows, obviously being part of Speedref is about the show, and the show is what we do. Being on the back of the car, obviously, I go from doing last chance race. Let's start with that sort of start bit. Obviously, I ended up on the back of the pace car for the first Unlimited National Banger last chance race last year, and then I was on the back of the pace car all night on the Rookie Banger World. But obviously, the minute you tap that bar and you're going around and you're looking at all these fans and you're looking at what's going on, and in the bar you're getting closer to this bend because obviously you know where you are by this point. As you tap that bar, the buzz that you get from putting the flags up together to going green is something different. It's a different buzz to being on a rostrum or being on a corner in overalls. You're in control at that point until you go green, basically, because obviously as everyone knows, the starter's in control on a lot of things on a start, like clutch starts and stuff like that.
And you've got 10,000 eyes on you and your flags. Mouldy old Odes playing. 10,000 eyes are on you, putting those flags together, just waiting for that green.
Yeah, it's a fantastic buzz. You can see it in the driver's eyes. The minute you tap that bar on the back of the car, their eyes light up because they know they're going to go. Obviously, like last year, Adam's Audi sort of nearly met the front of one of them, but you got the buzz. It's the same with when you start the first rolling lap of a major. When you got 2 cars and obviously you go from red to yellow, you've got to make sure. Obviously, 10 times out of 10 so far we've done a major. I've had Jason next to me, and obviously I've watched him, and when he's nodded, and obviously at Speed Weekend and Banger World, you got Adam who counts you down. Obviously, you got to make sure you're in the same way, and the flags sit exactly the same as you do with the other pace car startup.
And
that's you got to be.
And that's of course, Jason. You mentioned Jason Street is one of the officials who put in more work than anyone, and I think most people don't realise sort of how indebted they are to the work Jason does to make the show go.
You don't, and it's the same with Adam and Alex. Like, yeah, we didn't have Speed Weekend, so they didn't really have to organise it, and that's sad in that we didn't have Speed Weekend. But you can probably guarantee they're getting to the office on Monday after Speed Weekend, and the planning starts for next year. You can probably guarantee that. There's so much to do, because obviously you've got the campsite that they use, you've got to sort out the trophies, and obviously a lot of people don't know that a lot of the formulas run in a triangle system on their majors. And they get moved about. But at that point, all the planning starts going in. Yeah. Obviously, the road lines that go up, no one understands what goes on in the office. To be fair, if someone went to me, go and work in the office for a day, I don't think I could, because there's so much that goes on. But I'll give it a well good go.
Absolutely. I think that would probably be your dream job, wouldn't it?
Monday to Friday, sorted, and then at the track at weekend, that'll do me.
So we're now going to come on to, we're going to bring out of hibernation the mouldy old quiz. The rules are as follows. You'll get 1 minute to answer 10 questions. I'll start the rolling that music. You won't hear it, but people at home will hear it. And then as we go in, I'll say green, 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 and I will start asking the questions. Jordan will start the timer. Jordan, you ready with your clock?
Yep.
Jordan, never start yet till I tell you to.
You're not starter
Yes,
tonight, mate. You get one lifeline. If you say thumbs down, Jordan will stop the clock and I'll give you a clue. You can only use it once. You get one guess at that point, and then we go green, green, green and restart. As with everyone who does the quiz, the questions are sort of tailored towards your area. And in the quiz at the moment, we've got Adam Brown out front on 8, followed by Dave Goddard, Keith Reynolds and Steve Anscombe. So good company up there. So Mark, are you ready?
Yes. If I don't know a number, if I don't know a name, can I just give you their number? That's all right.
I think you'll be all right. But if you need to, you can. So Jordan, it's 1 minute on the clock.
Yep, 1 minute.
Okay, and the yellows are out. We are on the rolling lap. And we are green, green, green. Name 2 of the 5 current qualifiers for the 2020 Unlimited World Final.
Stacey Holdsworth, Lee Kingsnall.
No, you've got one of those. How many boards are on the starters stand? How many boards?
6.
Incorrect, but you can challenge me later on that. What flag will a driver be shown for an outside rear puncture during a banger race? What flag will they be shown?
Red Cross.
Correct. The Rolling Thunder show is currently promoted at what track?
Midden Hill.
Correct. Which current ORCI promoter was the winner of the Birmingham Champion of Champions race?
Deanwood.
Incorrect. Who was the last driver to win the Unlimited World Championship in a Ford Granada?
Jack Overy.
Incorrect. The old Aldershot Raceway was commonly known by which nickname?
Red flag.
Oh, okay, that went a lot quicker than I thought. Unlucky, Mark. I think you were unlucky with a couple of those. You can challenge me on one of them.
We got 6 boards.
No, I thought it was 7 because you got 5 lap boards, a black cross, and a chalkboard.
Yeah, I said 7.
I thought you said 6.
No, 7. 6 if you don't include the chalkboard. 7 if you include the chalkboard. Adjudicators, we're going to give this because the chalkboard's a bit of a weird one, I suppose. It's one that's not used much. It's mainly used for big fields of cars. But obviously, I started using it a lot more regularly because the fields are getting bigger.
I think I'll give that one because the chalkboard's a bit weird. Okay, so we'll go back over those questions. So the final score was 4, which is better than I did because I got 3. So you beat me. So name 2 of the 5 current qualifiers for the 2020 World Final. You said Stacey Holdsworth. The other qualifiers are Jack Tuffin, Carl Kozlowski, Jack Overy, and Mickey Maskell, who's seeded as current world champion. Which current ORCI promoter was the winner of the Birmingham Champion of Champions race? Jordan, Ed, would you have got that?
Rob Speak.
It would have been Rob Speak. Who was the last driver to win the World Championship in a Ford Granada?
Well, I would have said Jack Overy, but I don't think so.
To be fair, I've just realised this, but Jack Overy did win it in a Ford Scorpio. What was it, 2015, I believe?
You're sort
of been old.
Yeah, you're sort of on the right track with. Well, you would have said. You're halfway there with Jack.
Jackson.
No. I wouldn't have done you for that, Mark. It was boxer Jason Jackson. The old Aldershot Raceway was commonly known by which nickname? Jordan, Ed?
HQ.
The other 2 questions we didn't get to. Which driver makes his return to racing at Saturday's King Lynn pre-75 meeting? This was the harder one, but I think we mentioned it in the preview. Ed, would you have known this because Jordan wrote this question? Oh, no, I think Ed's going to be back in 2 seconds. That would have been Alan Reid, Speedy. And the final question, Mark, which would have been, Which in-car race starter, who is sadly no longer with us, also had a son called Daniel, who was also an in-car race starter?
That one I would have known of because obviously we started off at racing at Speedway, and then my auntie's boyfriend moved to Inca race for a bit, and we moved on to starter. Yeah,
it was quite a hard one. It would have been John Gould, but the final score of 4. A lot of people have scored around there. Myself, I didn't even do that well. So congratulations for being there on 4. And I think that brings us... I think we've... thank you for coming on, Mark. Thanks for being a good sport, getting involved in the quiz, and thanks for your insight into the big events that you've been a part of. It's a pleasure to work with you. Like I said, we sometimes we argue with each other while under the pressure of situations, but like you said, it's part of a family, and it's a pleasure to be part of that. I know Ed's had to move away for 2 seconds. He's back now, I think.
I'm back.
Yeah, excellent. So, Ed, I think we're going to move on to the fixtures. I think we've covered most of the fixtures. Have we got any more? Obviously, we've got Northampton, Saturday B2B. We've got Tully Roan. We've got Aldershot.
You got Yarmouth on Sunday with Back to Basics.
Yarmouth Back to Basics on Sunday as well.
I think that's it. I think there's not been... all the meetings that are happening there are very well promoted, as if nobody was unaware that the racing is back.
We've got Stan Lake as well, I think, haven't we, on Sunday as well?
No, Stan Lake's the week after.
The week after.
That is a good one as well, because unlimited national bangers, and there's already 30 booked in. And around a track like Stan Lake, you don't need many cars to have a good race. So, that's looking to be quite a good meeting. I think tickets are on sale now, so... check out the Stan Lake Arena Facebook page, and I'm sure you'll find the various links to help you book the tickets or to help you book in if you fancy having a go around the racing.
And over the next over the next 3 weeks as well, there's also a second meeting at Yarmouth a week on Sunday, which is another Back to Basics meeting.
Yes, with the rookie rods in tow.
That's correct.
I was going to say that's an extremely fair point Jordan raised there. For certain tracks, they're only letting so many people in, so obviously if you can book ahead, if not just check before travelling, as they used to say years ago. Unfortunately, that phrase has come back into it. But I think we'll close out the fixtures for now. So well, like I said, I keep saying I'm obviously very proud of it and quite excited about myself. We're back racing again, so hopefully the next few weeks will bring back what we've been missing for the last couple of months. I think that wraps us up for this evening, but before we do that, we'll just say thank you and goodbye to everybody. So a very special thanks for our special guest. He's been fantastic. Hopefully we'll get him on somewhere soon. Thank you very much, Mark Ayres.
No worries, Eddie. Thank you very much.
No worries. We'll see you again. Thanks so much to Mr. Enthusiasm himself. Hopefully he keeps that enthusiasm over the next few weeks, because he's likely going to get extremely wound up either over British touring cars or the real BWS. Thank you very much, Jordan Hollins.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, everyone else, for listening, and see you at Kingsland Saturday if you're going.
I think so too. And of course, who can we forget the man who makes it all happen, Mr. Orange Race Media himself. Thank you very much, James Keane.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you to everyone listening. Thanks to our guest, Mark, and thanks to Jordan. And also a very special thanks to Steve Anscombe and the team at Cecil's Rent-A-Rookie, whose sponsorship mean that we can carry on putting this podcast out.
That's it. And hopefully you've been, what's the word I'm looking for here? You've been enhanced or influenced rather to go racing. No better way of going racing than giving Cecil's Rent-A-Rookie a shout. He basically provide everything for you except your nerves. He can't provide nerves or anything like that. Or what's the word you want to use? Courage or nerves? What do you think?
Bottle.
Courage, nerves, bravery, bottle, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't sell that, but he sells everything else. So yeah, that's been episode 51 of Cage Full Throttle. I'm Ed Fahey. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back very soon.